Is it worth asking if you've seen any movies?
You can ask.
That's not what I... Have you seen any movies besides these two Lupin the Third?
Nope.
God damn it.
Have you?
Yeah, Ricky, I watch
What'd
like
you watch?
5 or 6 movies a week.
Jeez.
I watched a movie last night called Superstar: The Karen Carpenter Story. It's by Todd Haynes, the director of May December. It's a short film about Karen Carpenter from like the Carpenters, the like 60s, 70s duo, and it's like Barbie dolls reenacting kind of her, not her life story, but like her challenges, her health challenges. She died very young from a combination of like anorexia induced like heart failure and exhaustion and drug abuse and things like that. So anyway, so that was really good. And then I also watched Dream Scenario a few days before that, which, have you seen any ads for that one?
No, is it about the whole Minecraft dream scenario, or?
No.
Way to date the podcast, Rick.
Yeah. That's it's Nicolas Cage, and it's like he starts showing up in people's dreams, like everywhere, like and kind of the effects of that. Yeah? Is he the man of your dreams?
I thought you were just gonna keep going. That was supposed to just be a one-off comment. The effects of that, what, Lane?
Like what, like kind of going off the effects of like what that would do to your level of fame and social media and all of that. Like if that were to happen, like I don't know, it was interesting in the beginning. It was very have you seen Hereditary?
No.
God damn it, Ricky.
What?
Haven't you seen you need to make a list of movies that you have seen.
It's
so
like
that
12.
I can just refer to this. And 10 of them are from this podcast. God. Anyway, it was just very eerie, like editing and some of the dream sequences were really creepy in the beginning, but then it just becomes like isn't cancel culture fucked up kind of like treatise.
Wait, really?
Sucks. Yeah, spoilers, I guess, for Dream Scenario. I don't know, that was my interpretation of it. There were like characters that were like, the trauma of this man visiting their dreams, and like the movie seemed to be saying that was like super absurd and like, isn't trauma just a buzzword these days, like kind of a thing. And so, yeah, I was like, all right, this is dog shit also. It was not very good.
Yeah, sorry, I was letting Archie in.
Oh, you're fine.
Don't worry, that's an easy skip. I'll throw it right out of the window.
Yeah.
Take it off the list.
Wait, do you want to tell the people about your cats? I don't know if you read the description of this podcast, but I frequently reference that you can hear meowing in the background from your cats, but I haven't said exactly how many you have. Just that between the two of us, we have 6.
Well, between the two of us, there are 6. You have 1. The rest is left as an exercise to the listener.
The portrait of Ricky in people's minds just grows more detailed and rich.
And the portrait of Ricky in my closet just grows older and older, and I never age. And I look at it, and it gets older and older, and I turn it away from me, but I can't escape its gaze.
I almost just did a spit take. So wait, when you do these...
What's up? Yeah.
Because it's snowing out right now where I am. And also it should be snowing where you are, or will be soon.
But it's not, so...
It's going to be snowing.
Might
have snow. Do you, like, it's a cozy day, I feel like, for me.
Oh, yeah,
like, I'm under a blanket. I've got I've got my tea, my mug of tea here. It's just a nice, cozy day. And I feel like at least the first movie, kind of cozy.
Yeah,
in that
for sure.
Ghibli way that we'll be talking about today.
Oh, yeah. Miyazaki leaves his thumbprint on it, for sure.
Yeah. Reading about this movie and like the reaction to it is quite funny, that there's like fans of the Lupin the Third that were like, this movie sucks because they didn't make him a badass enough. Like,
yeah. So we can sort of get into the background of Lupin, I guess. I loved the first movie, but what were you going to say? Because we're skipping along. Yeah, on a nice cozy day like this.
I was just gonna say it's cozy and nice. Okay. And that I invite you to go make a cup of tea while I do the intro, if you'd like.
Wow, sheesh! I'll have a time for a whole cup of tea.
If you're fast.
Electric stove? I don't control the stove.
You
here,
don't have a
buddy.
kettle? You don't have
Nah.
a kettle?
Nah.
What's the matter with you?
Wow.
Okay. Well, fine. This is We Want to Watch. My name's Lane.
My name's Ricky.
And on this podcast, we talk about movies that we want to watch because we've heard about them or seen them in the past and think the other person should watch them, or we think they're important. Ricky, tell the listeners what this week's Rick's picks. Actually, it was 2 Rick's picks.
This week's Rick's picks were Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, which is a classic Miyazaki film. It was from 1978, I believe. I do believe.
79.
79. Okay, hey, you know what? We
Close.
take those. Yeah. And then set on the other side of that was I forget the full title.
It's Lupin the Third, Goemon's Blood Spray is the name of the anime,
yes.
which last week you gave the name of the manga instead. You said
The Blood Spray of Goemon
Blood
Ichikawa. Okay.
Yeah, which I think is fine. It'd be really funny if we just suddenly introduced like
A
reading
manga portion
this
to it.
podcast.
Yeah. We're like, man, I love the
Wait.
paneling on this. Do you see how they divided it into the 2 on top, 1 at the bottom, so you could really see the dynamic action going on across the bottom? Really good stuff.
Wait, so do you
No,
say
that'd be horrible.
manga and anime?
Yeah, so some people say they're like, oh, it's anime because that's the way that it
Right.
would be pronounced
It's-
in Japan,
yeah,
or
right.
manga, because they have the what is it? Is that a short A, long A, or non-stressed A? Whatever. Phonetically, that's just how their sound is made. But just having read it online and talking to people in person, it sounds really condescending and weird to say anime and manga. I'll say manga sometimes, but manga, anime, especially when talking to a somebody who's maybe less familiar with the territory, right?
Yeah. It's funny to hear. I had always heard manga, and so I feel like I say that more. But
Okay.
then anime, it makes more
Yeah.
sense to me because it seems like it's just short. It is just shortened of animation, right? But yeah, it's anime too, I guess, if you're actually a Japanese speaker. It's just a funny distinguishing thing, I guess, in my head. But
Yeah, because I used to say manga, and then just talking to people about it, I don't know, it was very much a high school don't say manga thing. It's manga, you're gonna say it manga, and it's yeah, I'm just gonna say it manga, that's fine.
is that don't say gay?
Yeah,
Don't say
essentially, right?
Manga. All right, so you picked 2 Lupin the Third.
Lupin the Third.
Yes. I knew of the movie Castle of Cagliostro because of its connection to Miyazaki. I knew that it was his first feature film, kind of before he joined Ghibli, or started Ghibli. But I had never seen it. It was one that I hadn't seen before. And I really didn't know, I kind of vaguely knew this was a caper just based on the cover art. But I
Right.
didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about this character. So I just had never gotten around to it. But what is your history with this property, I guess, this character?
So this movie was my introduction to Lupin the Third. Lupin the Third. Lupin Arsene, which is translated to the wolf a lot of times.
Yeah, which it's interesting because I didn't know that this character was based on an old French gentleman,
Yeah,
thief or
Lupin,
whatever.
the original Lupin.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is crazy that this is 130 or whatever year old character, but then he Lupin the Third is supposed to be his grandson, which is cute. It's fun.
Yeah, he's the third in line. I love that about it. I love the connections to the ancient robber. 130 years. I don't know if I can call him ancient, but the deceased, the former robber. I don't know, burglar.
Yeah, his
extraordinaire.
ancestor.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of the Netflix original Lupin.
Is this the TV show? Because I know there's a
Yes.
movie. Okay.
There,
Yeah.
I don't know how the movie and TV show are linked, I'll be honest with you. But I did watch part of the TV show, or maybe it was the movie and like it was short enough that my brain just processed it as part of the TV show. I don't know. Long story short, pretty good. I only watched like one of the capers, and then it sort of fell into like, oh, like it was getting into his background with him and his grandfather, and I was like, oh, I don't
That's not
really
what you
care
like about
about
this
that.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want more
Yeah.
capers, actually.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
here
exactly.
for. Like, that's your
Yeah.
market fit. If you could work out the metrics on that, Netflix. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, one of the parallels here is like James Bond,
Yeah.
which, like, I'm not a huge James Bond fan either. I've seen a couple of those movies, but I can't imagine a long, series or movie, that just goes into his like backstory. Like that takes all the fun out of it. The fun is that you don't
Yeah.
know.
And that's sort of the fun
So-
of Lupin the Third, like the animated
Right.
series, is that, especially being sort of thrown into it with this movie, is that like, okay, so this establishes like who your characters are, the relations with each other, just sort of in a vague sense, right? Like, oh, like
Yeah, they're
Lupin knows
archetypes.
Fujiko, like yeah, they're archetypes, and I love because like James Bond is a very sort of like it's like a Western robber, right? Like
Yeah.
in the senses of like East and West, like world views, I guess. And so we get to see the like Eastern take on a very sort of like Western. I mean, there's a
That's
cowboy
true.
for Christ's sake, right? Like
Yeah.
of like Western archetypes.
Well, there's two actually in both of these movies. The villain is like a big blonde, broad dude. Like they're different.
Right, the
they're different
European,
blonde
very
archetypes, but-
European. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Which
even
is
the
funny.
Yakuza is sort of like, I mean, that's like culturally, socially mimicking the European thing. At least nowadays, like more recent Yakuza. So it is very interesting. But to see it in specifically Castle of Cagliostro, it's really funny. I also really enjoy the like, I mean, Goemon's there obviously, and like it's the Eastern take of like an Easterner within a Western film, right? So like he
Yeah.
doesn't talk much. He's like very sort of reserved. And they have the like, what is it? Shamiskin, the like the little intro, the like the wood blocks, and then it's the like.
Oh yeah.
And like those sound cues, so satisfying. I love that. But it is very much so like almost like, yeah, like if I was watching a Western film like No Country for Old Men or something like that, like just throwing one out there, right? Not
I
the
was gonna say
no, I know, but
that's okay. No.
I would kind of, not that I have seen that movie either, so like this could be wildly off base. Just talking out of my ass here.
Obviously.
I
God.
would expect them to include like if there was a samurai included, I would
my
expect them to have the sort of like classic woodblocks. I don't know, maybe that's dumb, but
It's only dumb because you picked like a very anti-Western
all
Western.
right, cool, great.
Not in a bad way. Like it just
It's not a spaghetti
the thought of-
western.
No. Do you know? Okay, we can't go down this path. Yeah. So I guess have you always watched like this? Because I know the old series is like old. And I'm sure that there have been several other series and movies and whatnot in the interim between like the 70s and what seems like a revival in like the 2010s. Did you like grow up watching this, or was it what made you pick it? I guess besides it's cool and Lupin fucks.
Oh, wow. You took my main two away, right? It's cool and Lupin fucks. I really just enjoyed the movies. I've seen a few of them, like here and there, sort of piecemeal, and I pretty recently saw Goemon Spray Blood, like maybe a month or two ago, and I was just kind of thinking about it. and when you were asking for a pick, I hadn't actually picked out anything, and I was looking at the list, and I was like, well, I want to go with an anime, right? Anime, animated film, and
Okay.
Lupin the Third really jumped out at me. So.
Okay. What's your relationship with Ghibli?
I haven't seen every Ghibli film. I've seen quite a few. I mean, I pretty much enjoy all of them. Just the not really muted tones, the like pastel coloring, I guess, as well as a very sort of like characteristic classic animation style, technique, and artistry. So Ghibli doesn't. So Ghibli has spectacle, but it doesn't rely on it, right? It never uses it as a crutch, and that's something I enjoy a lot. A lot of times their stories, like the stories, can almost be sort of meandering or.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good word for it because like there's a story there, right? But it's like they
It's
really
dreamlike.
yeah, and they really embrace the media, right? Like the medium of animation to be able to play around and like really put you in that dreamlike state.
That was my big takeaway from Castle of Cagliostro, which again isn't a Ghibli movie, but it is Miyazaki. It's like the hijinks, which are great, but like even in their own, but like the specific way that they use animation, not to like create a surreal like visual landscape in this movie, but like to depict like the things that they're doing, like their movements and like the things that the different technology is doing, like during like action sequences, and making it like exaggerated to where, of course, you couldn't shoot this in live action, but not so crazy that it becomes like silly, or not even not silly, but just like it still looks cool. I thought that was really impressive because I think of a lot of like recent animation, especially Western stuff, like Disney, recent nonsense that they put out. Now those aren't action movies in the same way, but like a lot of the time I feel like the animation is so grounded in the West. Like even though you might have like weird character designs and like whatnot, and I mean I'm comparing this to a 50-year-old film, but like there aren't a lot of like, it reminded me of Looney Tunes in the way that like in Looney Tunes like they were very purposeful, I feel like, about depicting these characters doing things that were like super impossible and like really pushing the boundaries of animation to depict these things, and like and they're incredible. Whereas now it's like the stories aren't, they have action and things like that, but they're not kind of pushing the characters to bend and stretch and like jump crazy heights. Like Lupin, it like jumps between like buildings in this movie. And like it's not that it's believable, but it's fun and it looks good without looking silly. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm not making a cohesive.
Right, like
he is kind of Roadrunner like, yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the jumping across building scene, because that is like, it's one of my favorites, just from the way that the camera like pans, like it pans like from him, like sort of like you see him running towards the camera like on the building, right? And then it sort of pans up and you see like the like scale of like the roof that we're on. And then it's like it's him and it's like it pans like it's one shot. And like this is something that I really love about animation, is that you can create these like really unrealistic sort of like camera angles and like long form shots that you would not be able to do in person ever, like possibly. And so like
and
just seeing him
that's
there,
what I'm getting at, like
and him like soaring across the backdrop of the sky, and like there's nothing polluting it, right? Like there's nothing else in the scene. There's like nothing errant that like they had to remove with like CGI or anything like that. And the background is like the perfect like it's the perfect night sky, right?
It looks great. I mean, this movie looks fucking incredible. It's also really cool looking.
It is.
It's like got that like just like jazzy score, and like everything. Everyone is just so like
it's so upbeat,
cool
so with
and suave.
And even the Looney Tunes comparison from like the very first scene, like they set you into it where you're like, oh, like I'm essentially watching Looney Tunes, where I think it was like the cops are chasing them, or they robbed a casino
in the beginning.
Or whatever. Yeah. When they find out like, oh, like there's counterfeit bills, we have to go.
This
to
is
the bottom
counterfeit
of it.
money. Right.
Like when I believe it was cops chasing after them. Either that or it was like
It was the cops.
casino security,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. When they're driving, like some cars just like fall apart. Some of them just like split in half, and the front's just going, the back is still back there.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like the wackiest hijinks. And in Castle of Cagliostro, it's very lighthearted. There's a ton of levity. Like, you can tell like pretty much from the beginning, like no one's gonna die, right? Like the stakes are not that high. Like if somebody's
Right.
in a perilous situation, you feel like emotions for them. Like later on in the film, at the climax of the film, right? Like you feel for Lupin, right? You're like, oh shit, like my guy could go down.
Yeah, he's in the dungeon. Like,
Yeah.
I would argue that there is a little bit of like violence or stakes there.
When you see
You don't
the
think they're going to
skeletons.
die.
But-
Yeah, but it is like a more frightening, like kind
yeah.
of setting. Like, there is the threat of death, even if we as the audience know that he's not going to die. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I'm not saying that there's no threat, because it definitely builds tension,
Right.
and like you're definitely
Right.
like, ooh, like this
The
count
characters
means
don't know that.
business, right? But
Right.
but yeah,
It's good.
Yeah, it's so good, which is very different from like Goemon Spray of Blood.
Yeah.
Like
Woof.
so these are very opposite takes on the series. Maybe not on the franchise as a whole, because I sort of see the
Ooh.
Goemon movie as a offshoot of Lupin the Third. It's not like it doesn't have the same Lupin spirit as a movie focused entirely on Lupin would have.
Right.
But I really enjoyed the seriousness of it, and I think the animation is just as impactful, like animation and art style, just as impactful and just as interesting and uniquely used. While maybe, like, I mean, they're obviously like vastly different too, right? Like
Well,
sort of, they're
yeah.
painting different pictures, and they're painting them differently.
Yeah. Well, I found okay. So with Castle of Cagliostro, it was like it's very interesting to see Miyazaki's like breathtaking landscapes and like this like very cartoonish attention to detail with like vehicles and things. Like he the way he draws like planes and trains and shit in movies.
Of course, he
his
had to
movies
have a
are, like,
wacky flying machine in this movie.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
of
He
course,
has like
every
a
movie.
like a half-assed helicopter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a weird like quadcopter thing, but it's only
Yeah,
the one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like it was interesting to see that deployed in a way that was not so like serious or dreamlike, or like the way that later Miyazaki movies, like you were mentioning, like they have this like they're plotty but they're surreal. They're not like So like to see that animation style used in a kind of a sillier or more like fun. I don't mean that other Ghibli movies aren't fun, but you know what I mean. Like a less like thoughtful, I guess, way is a way of putting it.
Right. The plot is like very
contra-
straightforward on this one. There's no like
Sure,
oh,
right,
like,
right.
I wonder what's happening right now. It's like like
Right. It's not like this is
they're
symbolic
heisted.
for
Yeah.
the transition to adulthood. Like there's none of that.
Right.
But then
and it's also not political, because like they're like, oh, like we can't interfere with like their sovereign power, and like this random detective is like, oh, I'll get to the bottom of it. He's like from Japan. He's like
from Interpol.
he's like, I'm catching Lupin. I don't care. All right, I don't give a fuck about this shit. It's so good.
But then
They're kind of bros
to contrast
too.
that,
Anyways,
yeah, I like that they. You're okay. I do like that they end up kind of like working together begrudgingly. That's always a fun thing to see.
And they have that history where like they've like been known to work
they
together
know each
previously
other.
before. Yeah. Fujiko even
the fact
tips
that he
off
can-
the inspector.
Yeah. Well, the fact that Lupin even can, he is able to imitate or like impersonate him without having seen him. He just knows how the guy's dressed. Like that was really funny. That was a really good gag. But Goemon's blood spray, the animation, Ricky, and like I'm not saying this is bad. It's so aggressively ugly. Like
Wow,
it's
you
ugly
think so?
to look at. I'm not saying it's like bad. Like it's interesting for sure, and like it's like uncomfortable to look at. Like some of the character design, especially.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The grills on the lumberjack. Like, come on. Yeah.
Or like the henchmen. I forget what they were called. The four like dudes that were like the bodyguards of of the casino owner, or the mob boss or whatever.
Yeah. The Yakuza guy. Yeah.
they just like the very small pupils and like the kind of crazy eyes, like it's really like off-putting. It reminded me of the Boondocks of all things to compare it to. Like
that's
which the Boondocks is a little more like subdued in their art style, but it does still have that, like, it is not going for pretty. Like it's going for like a different kind of like beauty. You know what I mean? I guess. But so immediately when I started watching this, I was like, oh, okay, like we're locked into something completely different than Castle of Cagliostro.
And you get that right from the beginning too, right? Like they start you off with the casino scene. Like you're thrown into it where it's like, okay, well, the stakes here are different. Like some other shit's going down. This is not like a happy little heist.
No. So should we go through one at a time, or do you want to just keep bouncing back and forth?
So I mean, we nailed down Cagliostro, or we did a bit in Cagliostro. I really want to hear what you, because I sort of knew that like you liked Cagliostro, and I was like, all right, like I figured that one would be kind of a cinch, right? But for like highlighting differences in animation style and art technique between the two, right? Because I think Goemon's Spray of Blood is like just as good looking, but it's in a very different way. Like it's employed very differently. So I don't know. I think the differences are really cool. I want to hear what you think about Goemon's Spray of Blood, like in general, and then like lined up against a movie that like obviously is great, and also one that you personally enjoyed. So
I liked it. I'll say it. Yeah, it could not be more different.
Yeah.
Basically, in every single way. I really liked the impressionistic kind of like the fire, and like especially during the flashback scenes with Goemon, like when he's been defeated, and like he's kind of having these flashbacks that are very impressionistic, just lots of like fire where there shouldn't be, and he's kind of intersplicing his like flashback with like the current scene. Like I thought that was pretty impressive and cool. Definitely intense at times. The writing, now I watched the dub of this, but I watched subbed of Castle of Cagliostro just because that's what I could find for both, and I would have preferred I think to watch really I feel like I would have liked Goemon's Blood Spray more if it were the subbed version, but that's just I couldn't find one. The dialogue was far inferior, and the voice acting I think for this one compared to Castle of Cagliostro. Like Cagliostro, like they're it's not like amazing dialogue, like they're
it's there. Like you're getting enough from that, right? Like
and it's also not because of the serious tone isn't there in the same way. It's like more forgivable,
right?
Whereas this, like Goemon's Blood Spray, it was like lots of characters delivering very straightforward exposition, just
to the screen,
in conversation, basically. Sometimes without even like cutting to show what they're talking about, which that was like a nice reprieve to have it at least be like a narration of like, oh, I'm going to describe this character, like Hawk, the Hawk character. Like I'll describe what he's like, but sometimes it would just be like, oh, Lupin, like he is wanted in 15 countries for this and this, and they, it would just be very straightforward in a very clunky way. So that took me out, and then the voice acting was tough. I mean, it was like.
I'm not the biggest fan of dubs for that reason. So like part of it is the localization, where they'll take like multiple phrases in Japanese and sort of like, they'll translate out to roughly the same thing, and then it gets like localized, and then when they're redubbing it, they become the exact same thing, and it's like, all right, well, it makes for some like sort of awkward phrases being used pretty often, and I also don't think that especially like in any older dub, they're like, unless it's a passion project, the like dubbing industry was like very underfunded, and like English dubbing was just like horrible for a while, and it was the same dubbers over and over again, and they didn't really it felt like they hadn't seen the movie, so they didn't know what scenes like the voices were being put to, so like you can kind of tell that they were just in a room with a mic, like, saying the line. Delivering
lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the actual translation, like, it wasn't even that the phrases aren't it was a lot of, at least in the dubbed version, was a lot of like, well, you got to give it to him, like that just happened, like that kind of, which we joke about, and it just normally I could like overlook that because I do think the Castle of Cagliostro has a little bit of that too, but hearing it like said
like in English
instead of reading it,
yeah.
Well, no, yeah, hearing it said in English and having it be during this very serious movie and like during serious scenes, that was hard. It took me out a lot.
So that was the one thing that I kind of didn't like about Goemon is that they did try to shoehorn in a lot of the same sort of levity, right? Yeah. And it's like, all right, like you really could have just cut this. Like there was a decent 15 minutes I think could have just been left on the cutting floor with that one. Like,
which is crazy because it's already so short.
Right.
It's like a 50-minute movie.
Right. And it seems like they really tried to lean heavy into like, all right, like we're going to give him like his own cool, badass background. Like he's going to have like a villain that's all his, like, and they're still like, well, like, we can't go too evil with it, right? It can't be too bad, right? It's like, right, but like there's a scene where he literally just like mutilates like a room full of guys. Like it's just crazy. And they're outside, he cuts a gun in half, and they're like, right, but like, not too crazy with it now. So it's...
Yeah, the gore really like clashed with the silliness of some of it. Like, especially that dialogue that was supposed to be, I think, just like... And of course, this movie is like 7 years old at this point. So it's like, okay, back then maybe it wouldn't have been as grating, the kind of like... better luck next time kind of like thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's... But like now
it
has not aged.
It hasn't aged. Right?
Yeah.
So there's another Lupin movie that came out at around the same time, and it's very much so keeping in the Lupin style, and I believe it's actually a Western animation studio. It almost kind of looks like... All the characters look like rubber, almost.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I was going to suggest that for a later watch. To again sort of contrast it, but I wanted you to see like the two, like A, the intense differences between the styles, and B, the way that animation has changed. And I think and this is like just across the board in general, but specifically of this movie, it's like really, you can really sort of see the difference. It's being used as a crutch in Goemon Spray of Blood, right? Ichikawa Goemon Spray of Blood. And so they try to employ the same sort of feelings of levity in certain scenes, right? And I mean, maybe they're not trying to employ that levity, but and I mean not like levity of emotion, but levity of animation, right? So like in the scene where Lupin like sort of is like leaping from rooftop to rooftop, it makes sense that like yeah, he's weightless. It doesn't really matter. Like, he has a weight. You can see that, like, he's falling, right? But, like, while he's in the sky and waving his arms, you can almost believe that he could just take off, right?
Right.
In Goemon Spray of Blood, there's a few scenes where where Goemon's, like, hacking away at people, or, like, when they're fighting inside of the building, and they're just, like, hacking away at the supports. Crazy cool fucking scene. Love that shit.
It was cool.
It's so cool. It's so fucking cool. B, no fucking shot, bro. Like, there's just no way you could ever do that in your life, right? Like, this guy's got like the most like ridiculously cartoonishly large axes, and he just like swings them around like there's nothing. And I mean, he also has like huge, beefy, hammy arms. Like, this guy is just the biggest unit you've ever seen in your life. Versus Goemon just like stopping that like with the sword draw. It's like, all right, well.
It's cool, but it doesn't fit the art style in the same way. Right.
And they sort of they make it so that like, at least in my mind, they make it so that like some of the actions that the characters take, like it feels like they're not hitting anything, right? Like they're just like cutting through paper mache.
Yes. Yeah.
Except when they can't be, when it has to be real. And so it's a crutch, right? It's where like the animation's gotten really good, where like it looks great. At least to me, that looks great. I mean, the art style was stylistically like certain stuff is supposed to look repulsive. But like it looks bad in a good way, like in the way that like the special effects in The Thing look like really good, but it's
see,
it's
I could
really
look
bad,
at. I would make
right?
the thing. I would make the thing my fucking wallpaper if I could for work. No, whereas this, like, I don't like. It's just like uncomfortable. I don't know. Which again, that's the point.
Yeah,
I can recognize that it looks good in the sense that like
There's
it's definitely
technical
serving
skill
its
that went into
purpose.
it, right?
Yeah. But I do not like to look at it.
Yeah. So that
Especially coming off of, I feel like if I had seen like a more muted anime and then come to this, but to go from like literally two ends of the spectrum like this, like Miyazaki style versus,
and
it's like
Goemon's
going from
also a lot
playing
darker
fucking
and like
Breath of the Wild to Dark Souls.
yeah, and literally exactly. Both in terms of like emotional tone and like just the general color palettes that they use.
Actually, okay, wait. I'm interrupting this conversation.
Okay.
Did you have a Wii growing up?
Yeah.
The system?
Yeah.
Did you ever play the game Red Steel?
No.
Okay. It's this game, it's like a Yakuza game, and it's bad. No, it's like really bad. But I used to.
It's over.
You should. Okay, yeah. August and I and a couple other friends used to play it, and it's just broken. I mean, but it was like a. You're an American and you go to Japan to marry your girlfriend or like propose to her or something.
God, I wish.
She's like a Yakuza boss's daughter, and she
yes!
gets yeah. And so you have to learn how to like use the swords, but you also have a gun. The game was broken.
Yeah,
it was so busted because it was on the Wii, so you had motion controls.
Yeah.
But it was fun as hell because it was so busted. And when this movie started, Goemon's Blood Spray, like the intro of the walking through like to the mob boss himself and like the guy who gets kind of kidnapped because he's cheating at the casino, and like all of that was just giving me like Red Steel flashbacks. Anyway, shout out Red Steel.
Shout out Red Steel.
Good game. Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I mean, like again, the film is like it's so wildly different, and like the art styles help to reinforce that. Maybe not to reinforce their differences, but to reinforce the emotional impact that each film is supposed to have.
Yeah.
And Goemon, it's like everything is so dark. The tones aren't even muted per se, right? Like it's colorful. There's a lot of color on screen. It's just all sort of dark. I don't know a better way to describe it, I guess.
It's very like rich as opposed to like Cagliostro is very, like you said, pastel, or like it's also rich, but it's more like fantastical, whereas this is realistic but colorful.
Right.
Yeah.
And the really intense colors are the sprays of blood, right?
Right.
And
right.
I mean, I wonder why Goemon spray of blood, but I feel like they do, I feel like these movies illustrate like how far animation has come technically, while sort of showing the difference between like a skilled animator, a skilled director, like what art direction brings to each program, right?
Yeah.
In that Goemon, while very technically impressive, and I mean, I still think it's a good movie. I think it's maybe not a great movie, but like it's a good movie. It's a good watch.
It's good.
It's sick. It's just like it's a sick as fuck film. Like, there's just
Lupin does not
so
fuck
many
in
scenes.
it though.
No, yeah.
He is much less. Which here I have to bring this up now, which I'm sure you anticipated.
What?
The Fujiko character.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In this movie. Tough.
Ooh.
It was tough, man. Okay, so like her introduction, she's shown in Cagliostro, like she's like pretty, but she's savvy and she like does a lot.
Yeah.
In this movie,
the bimboification
she's introduced.
of Fujiko.
It's tough. She like is introduced from the shoulders up, and she's wearing like a strapless whatever dress or jumpsuit or something, and so she looks naked for like the first 15 seconds she's on screen, and I was like, okay, great. Her voice actor, I'm not going to emulate it here, but sounds like she like gargled salt water first.
Oh,
I don't know, like what
you gotta hear the sub. No.
Is the subbed version better?
She's sort of sultry with it, but yeah.
She's well, no. She's like she's sultry in the dub, but it's like every single line is delivered like
it's not dripping, right? But like
no, it's tough. It's
okay.
bad.
Right.
But okay, and then she like gets her like shirt cut open at one point toward the end. She, obviously the scene of her getting the massage, I was like, Ricky.
Yeah, like what's going on here, man?
But yeah, that was like embarrassing. I was like, I have to like log off my computer and like walk away because I'm afraid someone's gonna see through the window while I'm home alone watching this.
So like, I will say this movie has a lot of clips taken for like AMVs and
ew, yeah, I bet.
And like people definitely like edit gifs of like Fujiko like smoking weed and shit too.
Which two things about that. One. Yeah. Christopher said, I told him about this, and he mentioned that apparently they never show drugs in anime. Like, that just never happens, usually.
Yeah, usually not.
So I didn't know that. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, she's hitting a bong. Mm-hmm. She puts her lips around the bong. She's like,
I didn't notice
very
that.
sexualized the way that she... Now, I might have been looking for it at that point, because I was like, ready to hate this movie.
It is the Fujiko, for sure.
It's, yeah, it's tough, yeah. So I see that when you Google this movie, it's like that GIF is like one of the top things of of her hitting the bong. It's ridiculous. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's a babe in this movie. Total dime piece.
Okay, wait. Well,
what's up?
Okay, you're crazy. First off, but did you have crushes on cartoons when you were a kid?
Not really. I would have crushed on Fujiko in both types of movies though. 100%.
She's way more interesting in Castle of Cagliostro, I'll say.
Oh,
like, that's more of
she's so fucking hot in that movie. It's crazy. Castle of Cagliostro, she's hot, bro. It's nuts. She's a babe in the second movie, sure, but like, she's not as hot. She doesn't have that raw feminine energy. Like, oh,
I'm like, did you have crushes on cartoons as a kid? You're like, as a kid?
All right, true. No need to air me out like that.
I'll give it to you though. She's a babe, at least in Cagliostro. In the other one, I'm like, okay, this is too much. Okay, Instagram. Model.
Yeah. She's always posing for Instagram constantly.
Flat tummy tea. Yeah.
Join her MLM.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Lupin is hot in Castle of Cagliostro too. Yeah. He's kind of like a dork in the second one a little bit more.
They really do sort of
Goemon's
try to lean more into that because they want Goemon to be like the cool badass
right.
samurai, like and they lean into it. I feel like that's kind of the downfall of Goemon is they lean into everything too much, right? Like they're like, like these cool scenes have to be cooler than cool. Like he's got to stop the axe with his sword and then cut through it. Like it's got to be cooler than cool. Which is like, yeah, I get it. Like they're like, oh, like we got to show all these guys getting their arms cut off. It'll be sick, man. Like,
also, the shark.
Yeah,
the scene with the shark. This like the fucking megalodon that jumps out of the water there.
It's sick.
It's crazy. It's really cool. Yeah. Which I'm cool to vibe with that a little bit more, even though it does detract from like maybe making this a great movie, But it is still good. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean. Overall, I like Castle of Cagliostro more. But as like a quick, like, oh hey, just something to watch on like a Friday night. I think Goemon's Sprout Blood just fills that niche so well. Like that's a kickback, crack a couple brewskis open, just so that
you can't even finish 2 beers in the amount of time. I've seen you
me
drink,
personally,
actually.
no. Yeah. Maybe the really small ones, not the tall boys, but like the small ones. Maybe I could get on my 30.
Maybe
right?
One of the small White Claws.
Yeah.
I could see you putting 2 of those away to the time it takes.
Well, I could down 3 Buzzballs maybe. Yeah, I'd be trash, but yeah, like sitting down on the couch, cracking a couple of those, maybe smoking a little weed. Every time Fujiko hits a bong, you gotta hit it as well. Just so that like by the end, when like all the fights are happening one after the other, like you can do like the lean forward, like the guy's like yelling at the screen, like like Fujiko massage scene, and like everyone's leaning back, and then it's
God.
Goemon cuts a fucking just some poor lumberjack in half. Yo, you know, like just the true duality of man. Right?
Yeah, the fight scenes are the best part for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming back to Castle of Cagliostro, something that this reminded me of, especially in one scene in particular, was The Princess Bride. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Whew. Sound the fucking sirens. Yeah, thank you. We found a movie you've seen. It has a similar tone in like like silly, but like still, like gripping at times, and it's action and kind of fantasy, obviously, with like the setting, a castle, and like obviously a she's not quite a princess bride, but what was that you just did?
I found the air horn sound on the
Thank
Discord soundboard. They won't actually be able to hear it in the pod. So
I can't hear it either, so thank God. Yeah, I can't hear it. Okay, I can't hear that at all. Oh, yeah, I can't hear shit. That's great.
I really hope that this only like affects people in the voice channel. I don't want to be like spamming these guys with like duck sounds.
It'd be really funny, yeah, because I see that Liesel's posting in the
Yeah. They're just like,
Anyway.
what the hell is this duck doing?
Yeah, why is someone setting up air horns while Liesel's posting about Timmy Chalamet in the chat? I like that Wonka has
Like
become
Timmy
like
Chalamet mentioned.
Yeah.
He's Willy Wonka now.
This is terrible podcasting.
This is great.
But no, specifically
Mm-hmm.
In Cagliostro, at the end, when he's impersonating the Archbishop, I wasn't entirely sure what I like when a movie can like fool me, and so I wasn't entirely sure what the like ruse was
is?
here. I knew somebody. I knew somebody was going to be impersonating the Archbishop, and I knew that like whatever. I knew that the like bandaged Lupin wasn't fully like 100%, like not all was what it seemed.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be just like The Princess Bride. At the end, spoilers for The Princess Bride, go watch it. When he's like too, sick or like too injured to move still.
Yeah, he's just
and he just is sitting on the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
while
he
being the
bluffs
most
him.
attractive
Yeah,
man in the world, just throwing that out there. Go on.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah, we talked about this in a previous episode, I think.
Yeah.
Hayao. Yeah, is he the most beautiful a man's ever been on screen?
Why
It's
in
him
that
and
movie is everyone just like the most beautiful ever? Like the most beautiful people.
I think I got I don't know. Okay,
Inigo
you got
Montoya?
Carrie Elwes.
Just
Okay, yeah, Mandy
ridiculous,
Patinkin. He
yeah.
looks good.
um,
And obviously
Andre the Giant, ridiculous.
Now you're losing me.
What's up? Where?
No, I'm just saying that like if I'm ranking The Princess Bride,
Yeah.
like I'm going by the cast
Right.
of that movie. It's like Carrie Elwes.
Objectively,
Great.
Right. Yeah,
Hot. Beautiful.
for sure.
Robin Wright.
Yeah.
Princess Buttercup. Great. Gorgeous.
100%.
Mandy Patinkin. Okay. Also hot. Yeah.
okay,
Cool.
right.
Doing a weird accent, but fine. Chris Sarandon, the prince. Okay. Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, he comes in a little after Andre the Giant for me personally.
See, the rest of the cast here. We got Billy Crystal. You got Wallace Shawn.
Wait, we got Billy
doing
Crystal?
his thing.
Who's Billy Crystal?
He's the guy. He's like the old wizard that they go to revive.
Oh, the Revivify guy?
Yeah.
Is that who Billy Crystal is?
So,
I always thought he was like a music guy.
what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of like Billy Joel?
Am I?
I don't know who you think. Billy Crystal's an actor and a comedian. I mean, he does some song. He's not like a pop song. Like he makes comedy songs sometimes, but
Okay.
like he's a performer, but
Right.
he's not.
Is he still alive?
No. Yeah,
Wow. Oh.
one of the best Oscar hosts of all time.
Yeah, when did he host the Oscars? He must be old now, like old.
He is pretty old. He's like probably in his 70s. He's not that
That's
old.
old. Jesus, man.
But yeah, he's he's Mike Wazowski.
What?
You would know him as that. Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Google Billy Crystal right now. He's Calcifer in Howl's Moving Castle.
What? Well, in the dub.
Right.
He says this.
It'd be funny if it was just him.
yeah. Like he learned Japanese.
Miyazaki animated it. He's in, this is lame, but one of my favorite performances of him, he's in the Kenneth Branagh Hamlet, playing one of the small parts in that movie. Anyway.
He was in When Harry Met Sally. Okay.
Yeah, he's Harry. Good movie. Although that movie is, never mind. I'm not going to say anything else.
We might pot it, so let's save that for later.
It'd be a good pod movie.
Keep that in the pod.
We have extremely lost the plot here. Oh my gosh. Okay. How did we get on Billy Crystal? Oh, Princess Bride.
Yeah.
So when he's sitting there as the robot with all the bandages, I thought it was going to be like he's bandaged up and he still can't, like he's not fully recovered.
Right,
and so when they revealed it was a robot, it got me. I was like, oh.
That's a good one, no?
He tricked me too.
You got me. They also have some really advanced robotics in this movie. There's just like a few points where there's just like semi-automated lasers and just like full automatons. And it's like never explained. They're just like, yeah, this is the normal world, except there's a couple cool flying machines and robots. That's it. That's all you need to know. Like, have fun.
It's fun to put that stuff. Like, it's fun to put this like old timey like Italian or like, I don't know, Belgian like castle,
generic
town
European
basically,
town.
or like in the middle of like the real world. So you do have like both. Like it doesn't, there's still cars and the quadcopter and whatever. It allows for a cool blending.
Again, what is it? I can't think of the name of it. Underground
city?
Counterfeiting ring. Nah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. No, not the name of the Roman city that they find.
They uncover, kind of a lame treasure, all in all.
Kind of cool though. I love that like Lupin saw it. It was just like, well, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I can't.
He's
take
like, I can't steal
shit.
this.
Yeah.
Might as well give it to this guy. Which, when the Count dies, when he is like smushed in the hands of the clock tower, that was cool as hell.
Cool,
I didn't think
right?
they'd go there. I thought for sure he'd fall in, and then of course it's like tastefully done, like it's from far away, so you just hear like that.
Yep.
But it's still good. I was like, ooh.
Everything about the clock tower is so cool. That scene is like, it's one of my favorites. It's
it
like
is
a
cool.
10-minute long sequence where they're like climbing and like fighting in the gears and everything, and it gives me, it's like so anxiety ridden, like seeing all the gears and seeing them like climb to the top.
Did you play Mario 64? Not to keep bringing up video games from 20 years ago. It reminds me of the clock.
Yeah, where you get like
level.
pushed off by
Called?
the hand every so often.
Yeah, tick-tock clock.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
I'm not
At
sure.
the very top.
I don't know.
I hate that level. Because it is anxiety-inducing because there's nothing below you.
Yeah.
And like,
and
I know
the
it's just
camera angles are
platforming,
just
but
so
in
like
my head.
dog. It's so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Same idea here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scary. But it is cool. The underground lair, too, like the dungeon, that's really cool. The little trapdoor that sends them there, where it takes a picture as like...
I love when Lupin gets the guard and the housekeeper guy, when he gets them...
to fall in.
To fall in. And they're like holding on for a second. And like, again, it's something like you can only really pull off in animation, is like when they enter... There's a split second where they see the eyes and they go, oh crap, and like they both sort of like scrabble to try to like grab onto stuff, and that's so cool. Like the beat, so like timing in the animation process is often very difficult, right? And I think timing in animation really makes or breaks just like everything about it, right?
For sure. That's what comedy is about, especially, and like a lot of animation is comedy.
Yeah,
it's all timing.
Yeah,
that's why our podcast is so bad, because we're not recording in person, so
facts.
We don't
it's
have
horrible.
good comedic timing with each other.
But like even in terms of like the weight of how everything's supposed to feel, like when sounds occur, the reaction speed that characters are like quote unquote allowed to have, right? Like they nail it in Cagliostro. Everything feels like like when something large is approaching, or like something is like falling on screen, like it takes people like a second to see it react, or like see it like they have like a visceral reaction, like an emotional reaction, and then like to physically react, to like reel away, or to like drive the car away. And, like everything feels so like beat for beat perfect while watching that film. And then watching Goemon, it's there's some scenes which are rushed, like even in the fighting scenes, but like especially in just like talking scenes, things feel
you can definitely tell
more muddled.
They were hitting for a very specific runtime. You can tell.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, we need to keep this under 60.
Yeah.
So
and
it suffers because it's there's a lot more of the kind of dialogue of like, well, we need to do this because of this, like instead of showing it happening organically, or like this is what happened. You know, a lot of telling instead of showing.
Right.
Is the phrase.
And there's a lot that like I feel like doesn't need to be explained. Like Castle of Cagliostro, like they do really well with like, hey, like we just don't have to touch on this. Like they know each other. It's fine. Whatever. Like very hand wavy. And I mean, obviously a big fan of that. Every game session that I've ever run has had the most hand waving of like anything that I've ever seen. Because like, why not, right?
It's superior storytelling. I love that too. That's what makes Monster of the Week.
Well, whatever.
The tabletop role-playing game, because I know what you mean by games you run, but other people don't.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it such a good system, is because you can just be like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. Yeah, you know each other, it's fine.
Yeah,
you used to do this together.
Yeah, you know a guy.
You know it's counterfeit because you do. Because
yeah.
It's funny that everyone in this movie is like, oh, these are counterfeit, like immediately upon seeing the bills.
And like, they'll even be like, damn, this is good. So, it's like, how do you know it's not real then, right? Like...
Yeah. Who knows? Doesn't matter. It's fine. They all just know. Yeah. It's fine. Moving on.
Yeah, and like that's great. They don't have to be like, oh, like I can tell because the left inscription is slightly off. It's like, no, like I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, they know. Of course they know. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Versus Spray of Blood, like everything needs to be explained down to the it's like, all right, wow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then like every nitty-gritty detail, like, oh, why are these guys here? Well, they're here because
actually,
like these guys got sent there by the Yakuza boss. It's like, well, I mean, I kind of could have put that together if I saw them there, right? Like, I didn't need a scene of the boss like saying, "Hey, get out there." I don't know. It's not.
You know what took me out the most actually was at the end when he's like explaining to Jigen, Lupin is, what Goemon's doing, and he's like, oh, don't you understand? All his 5 senses have been turned off, and that's what he's been doing so that he can use, he can act without... It's like, shut up. I already saw his like nervous system like going crazy.
Right.
Like...
And also, how the fuck do you know that? You didn't see the nervous system thing. Do you have like
you didn't talk to him?
Yeah, like, do you have the most special eyes in the world that can tell any counterfeit and also read the chi of every person you're looking at? You can just tell that their 5 senses are open? Like, what?
It would have been much better. Also because it doesn't really translate, because he's definitely still using his senses. His nervous system is just picking up on it. That's still a sense. Like, I don't know. It's just, it became very like, okay, you don't need to explain this, like you're saying.
Yeah, I think the sub is like, oh, like you're cutting off your brain and having it so that like it's an immediate reaction, right? That your body just senses. It's no reaction. It's just a sense and an action, right? And it's like, all right, like cool. Yeah. I think the sub maybe handled that a little bit better, but I remember it being just like okay. But the scene where like he's getting the shit beat out of him, and then he does like the really long step, and like it does like boom, like the pulse, and then you get like the outline of the nervous system. Honestly, that's perfect. Like that tells you everything you need to know. It's so cool.
It was really exactly.
And then like he gets his get back and he just kills everyone there. Or maybe not kills everyone, but like brutally maims. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing, another comparison I made with Cagliostro. It's like the movie trusts, it's still a kid's movie, or like a, not a kid's movie, but it's not like an adult movie.
Right.
But it still trusts that you're smart enough to understand what's going on and does not need to explain everything to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I did feel Goemon, like that movie did,
which is
to its detriment, which
it's like
doesn't make sense because
it's for an older audience, and it's like it's almost like it was made with like Reddit in mind, right? Where they're like, oh, like they're gonna ask us like, why didn't we see this happen? Like,
yeah.
like, oh, I actually discovered 16 plot holes. Here they are. Oh, fuck.
I like your Redditor voice. Our Redditor voices go in opposite directions.
Yeah. Wait, what's your Redditor voice?
Oh,
no.
Zack Snyder.
No, mine.
That's my Redditor voice.
Because mine is the anime. Actually, it's anime. I'll have you know, I've seen over 40,000 anime. You can check my anime list.
I guess that's my nerd voice,
Yeah.
but I think of a Redditor as a very particular type of man.
I think of a Redditor as a very particular type of nerd, I'll be honest with you. But I digress. They're all of the same ilk, right? But it does feel like it was made with like certain critiques in mind, and it's critiques which shouldn't exist. And I think that's epidemic of many anime nowadays.
A lot of movies.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of movies in general, but especially anime sort of like suffers from it, where it's like there's some anime that you watch and you're like, okay, like just to like fit run times and like for weekly serialization and keeping up with the manga in certain ways, right? Like I understand why you make certain directorial choices in like increasing dialogue or keeping everything that like, or like keeping one character's internal monologue and like having them perform it while on screen. Like I get that. And it definitely flows better in a manga because you can like, when you're reading it, your reading speed is much faster and generally you're lingering on like the image, right? Where it's reversed when it's like there's a forced like set of time that you have to listen to someone dictate it to you. And that's where it really starts to fall apart. And Goemon Spray of Blood is like endemic of that, right? Where if you were reading like a manga for this movie, I feel like it'd flow really well. Where like those exposition scenes, it doesn't even register as exposition because it's just like a blurb, right? It's like, all right, cool, whatever. Like, great. There's my 2-sentence exposition and continue. But when you have to sit there and like scene transition, someone talking,
and listen,
I don't give a shit. Like,
and then there has to be
like, okay,
and then and there has to be like either somebody talking and you're showing them talking, or you're having to show the flashback, and it's like at that point just show the flashback.
Right.
Like you don't have to talk over it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the point you make about like having to, or like movies or shows or anything like anticipating criticism and countering that, especially like the Reddit type of like plot holes or whatever, which I feel like that has died down a little bit in the sense that we're not at like peak Star Wars, you know, like
cinema sins
criticism of those movies. Yeah. Like we're a little bit past that, but a couple different podcasts I listen to talk about like how movies are just, especially superhero movies, are anticipating that kind of like, you know, how does everything fit in like a metatextual way? Like how does everything like, you know, how do the narratives surrounding these movies, like how do we appease people with those but also still tell a good movie? And the answer is you can't. Right. So you have to like hit all of the, you know, the house style for like Marvel or like DC, and then just like, these movies just end up a muddled mess for the most part, especially lately because the meta narrative has like fallen apart. So
a lot of what ruins it for me
as those movies die,
is like hard magic systems versus soft magic systems. And I mean magic systems in terms of like any power scaling, right?
I hate a hard magic system.
I hate it. Everything needs it
now.
Fuck
Burning Wheel.
Everything. Literally everything needs
Fuck
a hard
RPGs.
But like even when it gets to like Iron Man or something, right? Like the first Iron Man, Tony Stark built this in a cave with scraps. I don't give a shit how it works, right? Like it's just whatever.
Right.
But then like
you don't need to explain to me. Like I trust it. It's fine. He's a genius. Right. Cool. He's hot. And he's in a cave. Great.
But then like I mean when they run out of plots, it's like, all right, well, I guess Tony needs some vibranium. Huh? Can we do something with that, guys? And they like
see, I feel like it's all plot.
You think?
Instead of being like
I haven't
interesting...
seen a superhero movie in a long time.
No. I haven't either. I think the last one I watched in theaters, I watched Black Widow because my fucking old boss invited a group of us, and then I was the only one to show up with him.
Wow.
So I watched that in theaters. Yeah, it sucked ass. That was maybe the worst theater experience I've ever had in my life.
I can tell you.
It's a bad movie, but yeah, I think before that I had seen Black Panther. I think that was the last one, like, in theaters.
Did you see Endgame? I feel like there's a lot we could talk about with Endgame.
No, actually, I saw Infinity War and never saw Endgame. I think I got divorced the year Endgame came out, and so I was like, I have more important shit to do.
Yeah. So I saw it as a Sunday matinee, and this is getting really far off topic, but like just a 1 minute little thing that I actually really want to share with you, and I want to hear your thoughts in particular.
Oh, with me?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
I feel honored.
So
okay, tell me.
Endgame,
I mean, I know about Endgame.
Right.
Yeah, I know the theory. Like, yeah.
So my friend saw it, big Marvel fan. He's seen every movie, and he was like, this was excellent, the best, yada yada. And like, I mean, I've missed a couple, right?
Yeah.
But like, I'd seen a lot growing up, and like, I've read a lot of the comics across like different timelines, whatever. There was a scene in it which I thought was like blatant, like, oh, this was a boardroom of guys who like all got together. So it was a scene where
I think I know what is it the women?
Yeah, where they pose one after the other.
Yeah,
and then they all join together on screen. And I like on the car ride home, I was talking with him. I was like, yeah, I thought that was like really shoehorned in and kind of disgusting. And he was like, oh, so you hate women? And I was like, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, to be clear, you do hate women, but that's not what you were saying.
But that's not what I'm saying. Fuck you. No, but I was like, no, like, I just think that, like, it's very obviously, like, a writer's choice, and they couldn't think of, like, the writers are so horrendously bad at their jobs, they couldn't think of ways to, like, give these cool, very empowered characters, like, the ability to fight back, especially when Captain Marvel could easily 1v1 Thor. She's done it in the comics. She could do it here. No reason for her not to be here, or not Thor, Thanos. No reason for her not to knock his block off, right? Even with the Infinity Stones. But I digress. I was like, yeah, like I get it, but I don't think that really like pushes a message of diversity.
It's poor.
If anything,
it's poor writing.
It's poor writing. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's horrendous writing, but like it's also like why are they not like like my questions from it like stem from the poor writing. Like, why are they not just fighting him? And then it's like, why is everyone posing together? I mean, same thing with Doctor Strange when like he first shows up, and then like they're all doing the circles, and like all the monk guys come through with the circles, and like everyone needs to have like a 30-second to 1 minute intro for like every single fucking portal and every like I don't know, man. Like, I get it. It was one big jerk-off fest for people who have, like, been watching these movies for 21 years or whatever, and they're like, this is, like, the big culmination of it. It's, like, a big fucking orgy fest. I get it. Cool. Whatever. But, like, it was really, really bad. It's a shame that your orgy fest was such a fucking pile of shit, you know? End of the day.
I'm watching this scene now on YouTube. Actually, it's not as bad as people made it sound. Now, I'm watching this totally devoid of context.
Let me watch.
Yeah, they're all standing there. Now, also Tom Holland, Spider-Man is there too. Oh, okay. So it's like
it's all the women in the Marvel universe.
Egg representation. Yeah. No, it's like obvious what they're going for, but I would say it's not any more shoehorned in feeling like it is. Like the rest, I guess, but it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, again, I haven't seen the rest of this movie, but like the original Avengers Assemble, I did see that, like the original scene of them, like the first one, like
the Avengers.
It's clearly, it's clearly going for the same. In that movie, like the first time that they all unite, I feel like, and like start their big battle, like they all land kind of one at a time in a similar, and the camera's kind of like revolving
pans
around
across them. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like this is just like kind of invoking that. Now it is a little bit corny that they did this in the first place, but I don't think it's any worse than anything else in these movies. So yeah, I'm gonna land with. It's definitely, like, nothing that they do in these movies is good faith. Like, of course, they're just like, we need to boardroom this. We need to, like, make sure that we have, you know, but...
I mean, I'm watching it now, too. And it's really funny that, like, in the beginning, right, it's like normal, like, humans, essentially, just, like, punching people, fighting them off, and then it's Captain Marvel just super fucking nuclear missile through like hordes of enemies just to fly at Thanos. It's like, all right, cool. Like,
hey, Brie Larson.
Yo, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Move over, Fujiko. You feel me? Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean
I think I was just fed up with the whole movie, and that was also like an hour and a half in, to like
at least
a 3-hour movie, or I guess it was 2 hours into a 3-hour movie, and I almost like spit out my drink and laughing at it because I was like, this is crazy. I will say that I did that with like 7 or 8 scenes in that big fight scene where there was just like when Thor gets his oh no, it was when Captain America raised Thor's hammer. Like, people cheered in my audience.
I've heard of that people were like, this is so cool,
Bro, I was about to start throwing popcorn at the screen. I was like, boo, like, this shit sucks.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll let the nerds have their thing.
No, I know.
I'm glad that it's dying, is what I'll say. Like, okay, you had your fun. Now go back to sleep. Go back to being a system administrator.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of popcorn, I am almost certain that Christopher is making popcorn right now. I can smell it.
Let's get back to good movies.
I was going to say, let's please. Anything else about either of these? I'll say the scene, one thing I really appreciated in Goemon was the scene where they've been arrested and they Lupin and Jigen are in the backseat, and I forget the detective's name. But he's like driving, and there's a grate between them, kind of dividing them between Zenigata, I think is the detective's name.
Oh yeah.
The way that was shot just looked really nice. Like they were definitely, that was just like a.
There's some good shot design in that, and like the even the animation of like the backgrounds moving, it's so smooth, and it's like, again, it's like animation technique with Castle of Cagliostro, like. Every scene where they're driving is so like orchestrated, right? And it's orchestrated really well.
Yeah, it's choreographed.
Choreographed, and it like everything is in its place at its right time. With Goemon Spray of Blood, it's like I feel like not as much intentionality had to be put into the making of some of those scenes. So like
there aren't as many big sweeping scenes.
Right.
Like a lot of the scenes are just like some people in a small room or a small area. There aren't as many like wide shots, so to speak.
Yeah. And so like you lose some of that intentionality, and like, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't set up a sort of closed like shot scene and you can't like set it up really well and like play with camera angles well, but I don't think Goemon did that particularly well. I mean, it definitely shines for its fights. It's a shonen / like seinen, I guess, which is like the adult version of it, the adult version of like a action thriller. But it's also it's like very far removed from like there's gore obviously, but it's very far removed from like Roshin Z or Akira, which has gore. It has like they have action, but it's paced and set very, very differently than Goemon Spray of Blood. And I mean, even the dynamic scenes within Lupin the Third and Roshin Z, right, are so vastly different. And I mean, I guess that does kind of come down to like the technology between them, but in like the wide sweeping shots or in like the car chase scene, right? The dynamicism or the dynamic nature of the scene follows those characters like very closely, so you don't actually get like the huge sweeping backgrounds while you're following the characters, right? You do sometimes like with the flying machines, but that's more of like a panning vista. It's not like in Roshin Z, you kind of get the best of both worlds with the one like the monorail scene where they're hanging on that and like flying along.
Right.
That's so sick. And the helicopter scene, like that was really, really cool. Really like well set up shot, and like obviously had to be like really difficult technically to pull off. And like it's from around the same time as Castle of Cagliostro, so you get to see like a slightly different animation style and like different techniques being used to great effect, right? Like Castle of Cagliostro is like, I mean, I'm not gonna say obviously better, but it's kind of obviously better in terms of animation styling, techniques, artwork. To not even touch on the story, but they're just
one
very
thing
different.
I'll say that Goemon has better lighting, I think. Not that Lupin the Third is like, or the Castle of Cagliostro isn't ugly. It's just there isn't a lot of like shadow.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of playing with like light in the same way. Whereas Goemon, I mean, because it's more stylized and kind of noir-esque, it does do that more. So
I'll say,
I'd say that's like an edge. Yeah.
I'll say Cagliostro does lighting, but they do it in like wide swaths, right? Where it's like the dungeon scenes are all darker than like every other scene, right? Even the scenes at night.
Sure, but there's not
like
no. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's light.
Right.
It's just that they're not like, the way
it's
the
not like
light
personal
itself
lighting.
isn't hitting.
Right.
Well, just like if you compare like different frames of Goemon, like there's frames of like light reflecting off of his sword in like really interesting ways, and like the way it's hitting his body, during the fight scenes, versus like if you look at like Castle of Cagliostro, things are pretty flat. Like the lighting there's not a lot of like shadow and light at play,
right.
even in scenes that are like, I mean, yeah, of course they're making the scenes that are at night darker or whatever.
Right.
But
well, it's just that they're shadowy.
yeah.
Like it's the scene is shadowy. It's not like personal lighting. Like they're not. It's not like
it's not employed as a technique for like,
right.
yeah.
It's not like
hear what you're saying.
Minecraft lighting, right? Like there's not like lights being put down that like affect the environment or like the people within it. And that's something that's gotten easier in time, right? Like with like ray tracing, that sort of like these sort of techniques, you can set up like in 3-dimensional like rooms, like your light sources, and sometimes you have to like fib them a little bit in order to get the right reference frames for like what shadows you want for the scene that you want to create, right? And so like even I don't doubt that like a lot of drawing went into this movie, but it was definitely like computer assisted for the most part, which is like a far cry from what they had back in '79. I think we decided.
79, yeah.
So like you get to see where like certain things have come really far in animation, right? But it starts to become almost more about the spectacle. And I mean, I mentioned this in the beginning where Miyazaki has spectacle in his films, but it's like a spectacle of awe almost versus a spectacle of animation, like talent, I guess. I don't know. That almost makes it sound like I'm downplaying the talent of the animators that have worked on like Miyazaki films. I'm not. They're the techniques that they're using are like different and they're older, but it doesn't allow them to do as much. But I think it makes what they're doing so much more impressive, almost, right?
Sure.
Like it's like impressionistic painting versus like photorealism, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. It's just different.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I like both films. I'm glad you liked both of them at the very least. Which one would you say you liked more?
Yeah. Oh, definitely Cagliostro.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of. I mean, end of the day, right? Like, go ahead.
But I did like Goemon's Blood Spray. I did like, like you mentioned, kind of the quick, like that it was kind of, a quick one.
Yep.
More contained. And yeah, like the caper aspect of it, being set to the side was interesting. I'd be, I like a crime drama, so I'd be open to more anime in this vein that's more about like crime or mystery or something like a little more serious, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye out.
So, yeah. But I'd also be open to watching any Miyazaki movies that we decide on too, because those are always a fun time.
Sweet. Yeah. I've actually been reading the manga Conan the Detective.
Okay.
So this is like a 40-year-old manga. Which is still in serialization, by the way, like monthly, I think. It's actually insane to me. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into it here, but it's insane to me how they've kept that franchise going for as long as they have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not gonna say. I'll say they do a lot of tropes really well, and like if you're into like crime scene dramas, I guess it's kind of light on the drama because I don't know. I guess there is drama, but it's like it does get a little bit lighter on it because the stakes sort of ease off a bit. But it's like a procedural almost. And like reading it is very funny because like every time you kind of know pretty much exactly what's going to happen, but it's like the reader is being asked like, "Hey, can you figure this out before next week, huh?" And the clues are all there. They give them to you, whether it be in just like what people have said, or like even just like the layout scenes in a particular way, so that you can notice something, and it's not like obliquely noticeable. But it's really cool. It's really interesting. I do love it for that. But God, they're like 1,200 chapters in. It's a slog.
Yeah, that's a lot. I could not do it.
I started it a year ago, and I think I'm on chapter 400. It's tough. You got to take some breaks every now and again. But it is cool, and it's got like an interesting story. So. And if you want to watch the new Lupin, not next week, but like week after for we
can't make this an anime podcast. I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to. That's fine.
Well, you can't go 2 weeks, 3 Rick picks in a row. Rick's picks.
I gotta switch it up. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I'll find something else.
So, I have a choice for you. I'm gonna give you 3 options.
Okay.
Would you like something serious and surreal?
Ooh.
Or I guess just surreal, silly, or serious.
Is the surreal one serious at all?
It's more serious, yeah. It's not like a comedy. It's absurd, I would say.
Probably the surreal one.
You want to try that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the movie that we want to watch next week then. I want to watch The Trial, which is it's a little movie by directed by a certain man named Orson Welles.
Oh, he's so fuckable.
It's from the 60s. He is he's directing this movie, though. I don't think he's in it, to my knowledge. But
behind that camera?
It's based on a Kafka story. So it is kind of about a guy who is arrested and goes to trial, but he doesn't know what for, and no one will tell him, basically. So this is a movie that, A, I have the Criterion disc for, so I want to finally watch it, but B, it's one of Wells's like kind of bigger movies that I haven't seen. So it's supposed to be really good, and it's a little older. It's newer than the Douglas Sirk movie we watched, but it's still a little older than some of the other things we've seen so far. So I figured we can, since we've both seen Citizen Kane, you'll have a reference point for Wells's directorial style too. I figure if we're going to do all of his movies eventually, then, lead up to F for Fake, then we might as well go through some of his older stuff. So
sweet.
Yeah.
I'll say that when Googling it, under people also watch, there's The Other Side of the Wind.
Yes.
F for Fake. And then the third movie there is The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Are you kidding me? What? Hang on a second.
My eyes almost bulged out of my head. Too. And then immediately after that is Elevator to the Gallows, which I never thought I would see like back to back next to each other.
Oh, see, my people also search for very different. They are very, very different. There's a few other Orson Welles movies in here, but there's also like movies I've never heard of. A lot of old, like 50s and 60s movies.
Anatomy of a Murder, Out of the Past, a lot of oldies.
I hated Anatomy of a Murder. But okay, cool. Well, so next week we want to watch The Trial, 1962, directed by Orson Welles.
We want to
Do you have a... Oh. Do we have a theme song?
No, I just did a We Want to Watch.
You could turn that into something. Please, God, stop making me Google YouTube to mp3.com and ripping
Getting
songs.
copyright struck.
Unless you think there's a song from Lupin that... I guess I could do the...
Lupin the Third!
Maybe I'll find like a cover of something from Castle of Cagliostro. A lo-fi chill hop cover.
If
A
you're
lot of
looking up
those
lo-fi
for
chill hop,
Miyazaki.
you're definitely gonna find a fucking Fujiko smoking a bong in the background of some lo-fi hip hop.